ஆழ்வார் எம்பெருமானார் ஜீயர் திருடிகளே சரணம், ஜீயர் திருடிகளே சரணம். We are going to do another bOdhayantha parasparam session. This time we are going to talk about an important topic. We have Venkatesh Swami with us. He is going to initiate the conversation. We are going to talk about how to conduct our Sri Vaishnava life in a regulated manner instead of living the way we want. So we are going to get going on the topic. Venkatesh Swami, please start the discussion.
Adiyan Ramanujadathan Swami, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Adiyan has a couple of questions that Adiyan would like to ask. We'll begin with a very fundamental question that any human being is supposed to know as guided by Shastram. So what are some regulative principles for any human being as per Shastram? And if we can shed also more light on specific instructions by our Purvacharyas for the practice in Sri Vaishnavas.
Okay. See, in general, Shastram advises let's focus on human being for now. Every human being to live a life which is free from violence, free from disturbance to others. The life should be filled with peace and satisfaction. And the life should be dedicated to Bhagavan, who has given us this body and senses. So this is the basic direction for all human beings. Anyone who will accept Shastram, anyone who will take the guidance from Shastram, the Shastram says that the individual should be not inciting violence, should not harming anyone, should live a peaceful life, should dedicate one's life to Bhagavan. This is the foundational aspect. Beyond that, as Sri Vaishnavas, we have higher responsibility. We have bigger responsibility. Once we get Panchasanskaram, once we start understanding our relationship with Bhagavan, we have to see all individuals, all Atmas as Shariram of Bhagavan, as body of Bhagavan. Thus, we should not have hatred towards anyone. We should not put anyone down based on their knowledge, their birth, their wealth, their beauty, and so on. And we should live a life which is totally for the purpose of Bhagavan's happiness. So this is the basic outline of a Sri Vaishnava's life, how one should conduct one's life.
Dhanyasmi Swami. Again, we'll move to the next question. So, oftentimes people hesitate to try a spiritual process or culture, fearing the difficulty in following this strict personal discipline, right? And also very much attached to bad habits, so giving up bad habits also. So how would they will encourage such people by explaining the motivation needed for such a commitment for a disciplined life for spiritual advancement based on our Purvacharya's works and instructions?
Okay. See, anyone will generally think that they can live their life as they please, as they desire. And the moment one gets into any sampradayam or any institution which is meant for the betterment of the individual, which is meant for the overall well being of the individual. So, any sampradayam, that is the main focus. The individual has to progress from a state where he does whatever he wants. He has to progress from that state to he follows certain discipline, certain control of senses, certain control of their urge to speak, urge to act, and so on. So that is the foundation of any sampradayam. If we go into any sampradayam, they will say that you have to live your life like this. You have to do this particular activity on a daily basis. You have to go to temple. You have to obey the elders. You have to observe the rules which are explained in the literature pertaining to the particular sampradayam, and you have to learn those rules and you have to live by those rules. This is what any sampradayam will say. Similarly, our Sri Vaishnava Sampradayam also has a set of rules and regulations for each Sri Vaishnava. So, if you want to become a good Sri Vaishnava, if you want to progress in spiritual life, we have to follow those rules and regulations. Because by following those rules and regulations, we will progressively improve. Because progress will not come without any effort, and progress will not come on just one day, like overnight. We will not change completely. It has to happen by a certain process, through a certain process, by studying the literature, by understanding the principles, and by slowly putting those into practice. So anyone who desires to improve their lifestyle, anyone who wants to have a better life, they have to follow certain rules and regulations. So in our sampradayam, whatever rules and regulations are there, we have to follow so that we can make progress and be a better Sri Vaishnava, as our Purvacharyas have shown. So here is where it is important to see what our Purvacharyas have said. For example, if our Purvacharyas thought that we can be a Sri Vaishnava and still we can do whatever we want, and at the end of our life, we will get the same benefit as someone who has lived a very disciplined life, very structured life, then they would have said, you take up initiation in Sri Vaishnava Sampradayam and you live whatever way you want, and at the end of the day, you will get moksha. You will get eternal kainkaryam. But they did not say that. They have written so many granthams, so many different literature to explain how a Sri Vaishnava should conduct his life or her life. So we have to see from those literature. For example, we have Mumukshupadi, we have Sri Vachanabhushanam, we have Upadesha Ratnamalai, we have Jnanasaram, Prameyasaram. These are all specifically focused on instructing Sri Vaishnavas on their lifestyle, on their qualities. So these granthams, I have only listed 5 or 6 of them, but there are plenty of them. All of these granthams have many hundreds of lines of instructions of how Sri Vaishnavas should live. So we cannot simply say that I want to be a Sri Vaishnava, yet I won't follow any of the rules. If we say that, then we will not make the progress which our Purvacharyas have shown in their granthams for those who follow those granthams. So, by following those granthams, the objective is that we will progress and we will improve as a Sri Vaishnava. We will develop good qualities. We will develop good conduct. So, these things happen by following the literature and the Purvacharya's instructions. So it is essential for anyone who desires progress, anyone who desires success as a Sri Vaishnava, to follow these rules and regulations.
So, talking on the same lines, we have this concept of Brahmacharya, which is very much emphasized by almost every spiritual tradition. So, what is Brahmacharya? If David can shed light on what is Brahmacharya, and is it discussed in our Sampradayam, and how important it is for our Atma Ujjivanam as a Sri Vaishnava?
Sure. See, Brahmacharya is spoken about in Shastram quite a bit. Shastram is the foundation for our Sampradayam also. We are basically Vaidika Sampradayam, so we go with Veda Shastram. In Veda Shastram, Brahmacharya is very much emphasized for those who desire to reach Bhagavan. Brahmacharya is basically celibacy to some extent. If you see a direct one-to-one translation, Brahmacharya will lead to celibacy. And this celibacy is usually observed before marriage. That is a normal observation we see in the society, that those who are unmarried, they remain celibate and they don't indulge into sensual pleasures. That is the normal understanding of Brahmacharya. And it is not just physical pleasures, but it's also the control of senses. About, let's say, it's about eating, overeating, and just having so much attachment to the tongue. That is also not good. Similarly, other entertainment activities, overdoing it, that is also not good, because that means we are not having control over our senses. So all of these constitute the concept of Brahmacharya, and it is mainly explained for those who are unmarried. And once a person gets married, it is allowed in Shastram for such a person who is married to have certain pleasures, and the two in a regulated way, so that they can pacify their desires to some extent and focus on higher concepts, higher philosophy. Because if one is constantly hankering for enjoyment, and if he is not getting it, if he is deprived of it, maybe it will burst into a wrong doing, engaging in illicit activities or so on. So for that, Shastram provides a general framework where people can get married and get some enjoyment in a regulated way, and together with the spouse, that is husband and the wife, can focus on dharma, doing their duties, doing their devotional activities together and so on, and building a family through progeny, bringing up good children who will carry forward dharma for next generations. If Vaidika people, if Satvika people don't procreate, then there will be less people in the future to carry forward the message of Bhagavan, of Shastram. For that purpose, in Shastram, it is allowed, it is encouraged to engage in marriage and procreate children, bring up children in a very good way, and so on. But those who can choose to remain unmarried, they can remain unmarried as long as they have control over senses and so on. Now, even for married person, if they if the married persons also obey Shastram and have enjoyment within the limits of Shastram, marriage is not a license to just enjoy. There is higher purpose for marriage. The real purpose of marriage is to create more sattvika people, more people who are compassionate, who are kind, who are devotional, who are caring for the society, caring for the Atmo Jivanam of all people. So we need to create more such people. That is why Shastram encourages marriage. So even within the marriage, one can remain a brahmachari as long as he obeys the rules of marriage properly. So brahmacharya has multiple connotations. That is, it is in one sense total celibacy. In another sense, it is also remaining with control of senses, remaining focused on Bhagavan, remaining with full faith in Shastram. These are also part of Brahmacharya. And Manavada Mamnigal actually explains this in one place in the commentaries about this Brahmacharya, that even a Grahastha can be a Brahmachari as long as he follows the Shastram properly in that ashrama, in the Grihastha ashrama. So Brahmacharya is more aligned towards control of senses, controlling the urge to speak, to enjoy, to act, and so on. Because a lot of times we want to say certain things, and given a chance, we'll speak our mind. But due to environmental situations, we control ourselves, fearing that some people may mistake us, some people may think that we are arrogant, we are speaking spontaneously without thinking, and so on. So we control ourselves. But instead of controlling ourselves for the fear of others, we should really control ourselves for the fear of Shastram, for the fear of not creating unnecessary sins. Because if we hurt others through speech, that is also a sin. If we are unable to control ourselves and enjoy in an illicit way, that is also a sin. So we have to fear Shastram and control ourselves rather than behaving in one way in public and behaving differently in private. So if we have that level of control where we behave the same way in public and private, that is same way means in the good way, then even a grihastha can be said to have brahmacharya.
Dhanyos Swami. I have one last follow-up question on Brahmacharya.
Yeah.
So it seems to require a lot of self-effort to control one's bodily urges, right? So how do we see it correctly in the light of being a prapanna? Given that we depend on Perumal for our upayam and he's the upayam. So how do we see in the light of being a prapanna?
Yeah.
For the self-effort that is involved in controlling one's.
Yes. It's a very, very important question, because so far we have discussed about how one should be controlling oneself and so on. But really, for prapannas, for us, this is where the guidance of an acharya becomes very, very handy and important, because we on our own cannot determine what is the best for us all the time. We need well realized acharyas who can guide us at each step to ensure that we are acting according to our Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya principles. All our Purvacharyas have given us very high worth very valuable instructions. But these instructions can be learnt through kalakshepams, like proper lectures from Purvacharyas, rather than studying the book ourselves, the Grantham ourselves. So when we listen to kalakshepams, when we take shiksha from a guru, because listening to lectures is one, getting instructions and getting corrected is another. We should be ready to accept instructions from others and change, because just listening to lectures, acquiring knowledge, and we can even be smart in saying that, oh, okay, these things I can do, these other things I cannot do, so let me do these things which is favorable to me, which is to my liking, and ignore those things which are a little bit difficult for me to follow, and just say that, oh, these are all difficult to follow for anyone. But that is not the ideal way. Rather, we have to go to a acharya and seek his guidance at every step. If we want to make progress, we have to be in constant touch with the acharya, and once in a while request him to correct correct us if we are doing mistakes. And all of these instructions which we are having in the Purvacharya Granthams, if we can see someone practicing it, someone is having compassion, they are having patience, they are having the control of senses. So when we observe these things in other person, then it's easy for us to follow those, having the confidence that, oh, somebody else is doing it. It's not something which is just written in the uh, books. There is someone who is practicing it. There are others who are able to do it, because if you look at any of these principles which are shown in Purvacharya works, there are many who are following it, following those instructions to the extent possible for each one of them. So if we see that there are, let's say, 10 qualities identified in Mumukshupadi, beginning of Dvaya Prakaranam, for a particular prapanna to have, then there will be many persons, not necessarily very popular persons. They may be very, very submissive and very, very humble. They won't just present themselves to be a very great Anushtata or anything. But there are many who are following many of those principles. And also, one may not be following all principles, but one may have certain good principles, for one may have certain good qualities. So we have to observe such people when we are outside. We have to be constantly on the lookout for such sattvika people, those who are very well established in following Purvacharya's principles, and try to have satsangam with them and be inspired by their anushtanam and try to follow those things. Then it will become a little bit easier for us. It will give us confidence that these are possible to be followed, rather than having always be wondering, are these even possible to follow these days? So at least the Atma Gunams, the noble qualities, we have to observe from others and try to get those qualities and practice them. And of course, being surrendered to Bhagavan, we always have to pray to Bhagavan, as our Aldvas and Acharyas have done, that I am very, very lowly, I don't have any good qualities. I am just pretending, even when I am speaking outside, I am just pretending to be having all good qualities. But you make sure that I get at least some of the basic qualities, and make sure that I develop into a good Sri Vaishnava. So we have to have that constant prayer towards Bhagavan and Acharya, and be receptive for their suggestions and for their directions. Bhagavan is present as Antaryami and he is constantly guiding us. So he will lead us to good people, good acharyas. Similarly, when we meet acharyas, we have to ask them questions and take guidance rather than just seeing them, meeting them. And even though we may know certain answers, we can see in many of our Purvacharya's incidents, they'll be asking questions like, how do I develop bhakti towards Bhagavatas? This question may be present in at least 20-30 places in Purvacharya Vyakyanams. It's not that they don't know, but they want to listen it from the Acharya. Rather than always we speaking, we have to let the Acharya speak and get more insight from him, because those words will be more powerful and more inspiring for us when we hear from someone who is well situated in these Sampradaya principles. It will have more value. So we have to ask questions and find out from them about how to improve ourselves. And based on that, we have to also put in our efforts. Now, Bhagavan has given intelligence for us. We have to use that intelligence in proper way in practicing these principles as best as possible.
Dhanyosmi Swami. That was a very detailed elaboration on important principles and questions. Again, thanks you for your time. And
thank you so much. It was a very insightful session we've had today. We'll hope to have another session in the future again.
ஆழ்வார் எம்பெருமானார் ஜீயர் திருவடிகளே சரணம், ஜீயர் திருவடிகளே சரணம்.
To learn such valuable information about our Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, please download KOYIL, KOYIL app from Google Play Store or Apple App Store. Our website is koyil.org, KOYIL.org.